Hey guys, welcome again. And so this video is the concluding video on the book we've been looking at so far, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F by Manson. And so chapter 7, Failure is the Way Forward. Failure is the way forward. I guess by now we are used to Mark's unconventional style of assigning titles to chapters. And Mark went on to explain that if someone is doing better than you in anything, a skill or endeavor, it's very likely that he or she has failed at it more times than you have. And if someone is doing worse than you on any skill or endeavor, chances are very high that he or she hasn't gone through as much painful learning experiences as you've had. And therefore, we explain that for you to be willing to succeed in anything, you have to be willing to be a failure at it, at least in the beginning. For you to be willing to succeed, you have to be willing to be a failure at the beginning. And he thought that a lot of us right now avoid failure. And therefore, when you are always avoiding failure, you can't succeed. Because if you avoid failure, you can't do anything. Because you must fail in everything before you become a master. So he explained that what's the reason why people avoid failure? Failure comes with pain. Pain of loss, pain of criticism and all that. Failure comes with pain. So we tend to avoid failure because deep down we want to avoid pain. And we know that pain is part of life, just as pleasure is part of life. You can't take pain away out of life, just as you can't take pleasure away out of life. So what is the need trying to avoid something that is part of life? And the only way to overcome pain is to learn how to bear pain. So Mark explained that if you keep trying to avoid failure, if you keep trying to avoid pain, you won't take the necessary actions needed to achieve whatever you want in your life. Now, he told us a story about a psychologist named Kazimierz Dabrowski, a Polish psychologist. Now, he decided to understand how people cope with so-called negative experiences. And so he chose Poland in the 1950s because Poland just finished suffering from Second World War, which involved the events of Holocaust, and just a few years later the Soviets came and also tormented them. So they had gone through so much emotional distress. So he wanted to understand how can people cope with such a distress. And he concluded that every hurt lived through, every pain lived through, if used very well, will become an ingredient for you to become stronger emotionally, for your psychology to become stronger. In other words, painful experiences are needed for growth. I know that sounds counterintuitive. So he likens this to the pain involved in physical exercise. When you involve in physical exercise, there's pain, right? But at the end of the day, you have stronger muscles, more flexible muscles and all that. I remember when I was so scrawny, I decided to start hitting the gym because I didn't want to look so scrawny anymore. I remember facing two types of pain. First, the pain of lifting weights was unbearable. Secondly, the gym I was visiting, I had to begin with the lighter weights or the lightest of them all. And so the pros there were always looking at me and scoffing at me like, this is beginner. So because of such pains, I almost quit. But I had a senior friend or an older friend going with me, so he kept encouraging me, no pain, no gain, and now I'm not scrawny anymore. And years later, I'm still giving into exercise every morning. So he said, since we cannot escape the painful experiences of life, why not use it to become tougher and become stronger? And so he made us to understand that pain is needed for you to grow tougher as a person. And we've understood that children who, while growing up, their parents created an an environment free of pain, devoid of pain or distress. Whatever they needed were provided. Whatever they asked for was provided. We understood over the years that they grew up to be weak individuals, because when they came into the real world, probably when they left the shelter of their parents, they found out that the world is not a place free of pain. It's not a place where whatever you want to be offered to you on a platter of gold. So you see, to grow into a well, strong, matured adult, pain cannot be avoided. So Mark explained that this avoidance of pain and avoidance of failure is not inborn. It's something we adopted as adults due to some shitty values. Now he explained that while we were kids trying to learn how to walk, no matter how many times we injured ourselves or fell, we were always getting back up on our feet. It has never been recorded of any kid that decided not to walk anymore because he has failed at it so much times. So he said this is something we learn as adults for whatever reason. So, and this causes us not to take necessary actions that will definitely lead us to achieve whatever our goals and aspirations are. So Mark said we should stop being afraid of failure. We should stop avoiding failure and pain because they are necessary in life. Now Mark also explained another factor that hinders us from taking necessary actions in order to achieve our goals and aspirations. And he called that lack of motivation. We all know that whenever we feel motivated, actions flows out of such motivation. Whenever we are motivated, we have a go at whatever we know we need to do in that moment or for that day. Now, there are days where we don't feel motivated. So how do we do in those days? And this brings us to the law of reversibility. Just as much as actions follows emotions or flows out of emotions, emotions also follow actions and flows out of actions. Now let me explain. Like I said, when you feel motivated, right, you do the things that you feel like you should be doing because you have the emotional fuel to have a go at them, right? Now, those days when you don't have that emotional fuel or urge to have a go at the things you need to do, if you can get yourself to begin those activities, the emotions and the inspiration and the motivation you need will come afterwards. So Mark talked about the do principle. So you need to write, like I write every day at least for 1 hour. Some days I feel motivated to write and I have a go at it. Some days I don't feel like it. I don't feel inspired. What do? In obedience to the do principle and the law of reversibility, I say, okay, let me just write maybe 10 sentences or 5 sentences. And I find out that by the time I force myself in those days when I don't feel motivated to write like 5 or 6 sentences, before 10 minutes or 15 minutes is over, I feel the emotional surge coming up within me, and before you know, I'm I'm heading down the hour. So what he is trying to tell us that days when you feel motivated, fine, have a go at your bucket list and check them off. Days when you don't feel motivated enough, do something. The do principle, start something, and you find out that before you get halfway, the emotions you need to inspire you or to push you through, the passion, the fuel you need will come forth. And that takes us to chapter 8. Chapter 8, the importance of saying no, the importance of hearing no, the importance of giving rejection, the importance of receiving rejection, the importance of boundary. We all know that rejection can be painful, right? But Mark said that we should not avoid rejection. We should always have boundaries. Freedom without boundaries leads to destruction. Freedom without boundaries leads to destruction. So Mark explained that for a period in his lifetime, he lived in over 55 countries. And the biggest lesson he got from such experience was that freedom in itself, it's nothing. Freedom in itself, it's nothing. That yes, he had a wide range of experiences, but what he found out was that those plenteous experiences were shallow. That it's better to have few deep experiences that will pull you through in life when you definitely experience adversity and painful situations, because we all get to experience such in our lives at different times. You need deep experiences that will make you stronger. So he said more and more is not always good. Lesser and lesser is always better. He talked about the consumer culture that we live in right now, where there are so many advertisements telling you that the more you buy, the more you get, the happier you feel. He explained to us that in any situation where you have so many options, you get confused. You will definitely get confused. And if after making that your choice, you find out that there were other choices that would have been better. But if in any scenario you had just two choices or two options to make a choice, you find out that it's easier for you to make a choice, and you don't you don't feel sad later on, because there are no other options that you would have said, hey, I would have taken this, I would have taken that. So he said he's trying to explain that it's better to have few deep relationships than to have so many shallow relationships. It's better to narrow your freedom, which is commitment. Have important goals in your life, important aspirations in your life, just about few of them, where you can invest all of your energy and emotions in and your talents in, than to have so many goals, hundreds of goals and aspirations, and end up achieving shallow things. He said it's better to have freedom with boundaries than to have freedom without boundaries, which is commitment, narrowing down your focus. I remember when we were kids in this part of the world, we had some kinds of lens that whenever you focus it on a polyethylene bag, if you focus it enough that the sun rays pass through it strongly enough, those bags will begin to melt, right? But you have to keep it at a spot. But if you keep shaking it, the bag won't melt. But if you keep it at the spot, the bag begins to melt away. That's what focus is all about. Freedom keeps you away from freedom with boundaries keeps you away from distractions. He said that if you stand for everything, you stand for nothing. So in order for you to be able to stand for something, you have to be able to reject other alternatives. You have to be able to reject other alternatives. So you need boundaries in your life. There are things in your life you should reject. Because if you don't reject some things, those things that you are saying you accept, you don't really stand strong in them. So he talked about the need of rejection in relationships and boundaries. He said in his marriage, honesty is very important. And so when it's time for him and his wife to go on a date, and after spending so much time in the closet, when she comes down and she asks him, how do I look, how's my makeup and my dress, that if she does not look nice to him, he's going to tell her that she doesn't look nice. And that's rejection, right? And he said that she would probably fling some offensive words at him and walk into the closet and have a redo of all that she had done. And if she comes out looking cool and beautiful, he'll also tell her. And he said that he has also become a better man in his life because of times when he needed advice and his wife was blunt to him, telling him no or yes at when needed, and he had become a better man. So we must know how to accept rejection and give rejection. You see, a young man, or there are so many young men that are supposed to be married or dating right now, they are not, because they are afraid that if they approach any lady, they are going to get rejected. And we knew that so many playboys get many of the ladies. Why? Because they are used to rejection. They are not afraid of rejection. And just as they've gotten so much rejections, they've gotten so many affirmations. So you're asking the lady out, you want to ask the lady out, right? You don't want her to reject you. What if she's got a man? She's got to reject you if she's got to make. What if she doesn't like your personality? She's got to reject you. Therefore, leaving you open to focus on those who might accept you or who will accept you. You know, a lady comes at you and you're like, you don't like her, or probably you have a lady, and you're like, because of her courage, out of sympathy, you want to say yes to her when you don't really like her, or maybe you're engaged to someone else. You have to give rejection, irrespective of caring about petty feelings. You know, so there is need for rejection. There is need for criticism. I'm not talking about destructive criticism. There is need to be criticized. It's feedback, so you learn on what to improve in your life and what not to improve. You see, strong sense of identity and self-esteem comes from being able to look at your strengths and weaknesses and say yes, and you work on them to get better, and being able to look at your weaknesses and mistakes and flaws and not being devastated and saying, okay, these are the things that can limit me, and you work hard to get them better. Not saying because I have weaknesses or flaws I'm a failure or I'm worthless. So there is need for boundaries. You must know there's need for boundaries, there's need for rejection. There's need to be able to say yes and say no, and hear yes and hear no. And that takes us to the final chapter, death. We are all going to die. Remember, the first statement in this book is know that you are going to die, you and everybody you care about. So Mark explained that there are so many people that don't want to hear about death, they don't want to think about it, they don't want to acknowledge it. What is the need of trying to acknowledge the inevitable? What's the need? So Mark explained that death is the light by which the shadow of life's importance is measured. So it's because of we are all going to die that we should be able to actually decide the things that we are going to dedicate our short life to. Probably you might live 30 years or 40 years or 50 years or 67, but you're not going to live up to 150 or 200, right? So it's still a short while. So what are you going to give this short time you have here to? What's going to be your legacy? So a lot of people, when they approach their death age, they want to leave something that they will be remembered for. Some people want to build an Eiffel Tower in remembrance of them and all that. You see, no matter what you want to build, everybody will forget you generations after you're gone. Definitely, they might remember the monument you erected, but they don't know you as a person. They don't know the beliefs you stood for. They don't know your personality. They don't know you as a person. So what Mark is trying to say is that it is better for you to leave a legacy in a way that you are leaving your family, you're leaving the environment, you're leaving your state, your country better than it was before you came into existence. Before you came into existence, the Bible says that any man that cannot provide for his family or leave an inheritance for them, by the time he dies or before he dies, is worse than an infidel. So you might not necessarily make the world a better place for your short time on earth. Just make your family a better place, your immediate family or your extended family or your community, or the field you dedicated your life to. Maybe the field of medicine, maybe the field of law, maybe the field of arts, the field of music or entertainment. Just make the world a better place. And so since you know that you're going to die, you have to decide that this short time you're going to be here, what are the things that are very important to you that you're going to dedicate yourself to? What are the things you're going to give a damn about? What are the things you're going to give a F about? When you make these decisions, it will free you from other alternatives. You're not going to give a damn or a F about things that, according to your value systems, are trifles or frivolous activities. So we have come to the end of this book review, and I hope that we've gotten better as a result of this book review. And whatever book you would like us to review on this community, please don't hesitate to drop it in the comment section. And for those of you that have not subscribed, please subscribe. Do well to revisit these videos from time to time, because I revisit these videos from time to time to learn from them. Just as the book that we've just reviewed, I revisit the book I've reviewed this book more than 3 times over the years, because when you repeat something to your nervous system, they tend to stick stronger and cause you to act spontaneously in ways that benefit you. So Have a nice day and expect more from us and this awesome channel.